your leadership, high performance, so what makes it sets it apart above everything else. And it comes along with this whole sense of self-love is if you're going to be able to help anybody, and this is part of my four L's of leadership, is you have to love people. You have to, if you really want to help people, you got to love them. And it comes back to what you're saying, Chelsea. If you don't have that self-love for yourself, how do you love other people or love them to help them effectively? And I find that this, to me anyway, that is at the top of my list. Is that unconditional love for people? If I'm going to help people, then I got to love them.
Right. Well, because you have to care, right? That's kind of synonymous with love. If you don't care about yourself, you have a very hard time caring about other people.
Absolutely. That's right. You also mentioned another thing is that thoughts become things and habits take time to release and disengage. You can expand on that a little bit.
Ooh, this is my favorite topic.
All right.
I think that it's just a fun topic to talk about. It's because it's become things. Let me go back and describe what that is to what I'm saying. That means to me that when you think a thought, you put something into form or to action. So for example, a lot of the times we talk about manifestation, my line of work, how you can manifest things. You can manifest all these beautiful things happening in your life. The thing is most people are like, oh, that sounds cheesy or wonky or voodoo or whatever. And it's not. It's actually a principle I think that's been around for so long. And it's because of the fact that we have the ability to create things in our mind. We form our habits. We form the way we view other people. Emotions, everything. So if you think about it from that perspective, like, for example, let's say I want to go on a trip. And I always like to use this example because I think it fits really well. You want to go on a trip, but you're not really sure if it's going to happen. You don't know if your friends are going. So you just say, well, I hope I can make this trip happen. And then you turn it to the other side and say, I know this trip is going to happen. I'm so excited. I'm going to start planning it. Notice how hope and no sound so different. I hope has almost like a passive tense to it, because it's almost like wishful thinking. But I know comes with certainty. That's what I say when I say thoughts become things, is you are creating that thought to become something into action. For example, I'll give you another one. If you're looking to get into a relationship and you say, well, I don't deserve a good man or I don't deserve a good woman, you're instantly self-sabotaging without even realizing it, because you're saying that you don't deserve it. So you're attracting people that don't deserve you.
Good thought. And you also talk about habits. You mentioned habits take time to release and disengage. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So habits is another thing that's similar to what I was saying about thoughts. And that is that we create all the habits in our life, right? Since the age of, well, really from 0 to 7, a lot of what our subconscious mind thinks was created then. And we live in about 85 to 90% of our unconscious mind. And we only do 5 to 10% in the conscious mind. So we're walking around with these habits. I mean, everything down from when you brush your teeth to how many times you shower, when you shower, night, day, all of that is habitual. And so when I say habits, I'm talking more about how do you break habits that you've had for so long quicker than the whole, I think it's 66 days to break a habit. I believe you can break a habit in a matter of days, even hours, if you know how to do it. The kind of work I do with NLP, it's designed to get you out of that mode of thinking really quickly, because the habits don't have to continue. Again, it's back to your mind. You're controlling everything you think. If you get your dream job tomorrow and they say, we need you here at 4 a.m. and you sleep until 10 a.m. every single morning, I guarantee you, if it's your dream job, you're going to be there at like 3:55, right? Maybe a little after 4. But you'll be there because you want it. It's a value. So it's the same principle with habits, is that you value something, and if you don't change it, it's because you don't value it enough to change.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention that, because that's one of the, he doesn't quite say it the same way, but in that book that I mentioned about reading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, he says a lot of the same things you just mentioned. You cannot be a success by having habits like you just mentioned. It's just not going to happen. There's a quote actually by Henry David Thoreau, and he says, "The path of least resistance makes for crooked rivers and crooked men." As you translate that into today's world, so to speak, I might have, say for instance, I might have not a great night of sleep, and then knowing that I've got to have a plan of action to be successful. I can't say, you know what, well, I'm going to, like you just said, sleep until 10 o'clock to catch up with the sleep. You've got to have some goals and set the standard, so to speak, of saying, listen, my goals set up for 5 o'clock starting in the morning. Now there's going to be some times when life kind of throws a curveball at you, but it's that consistency that you need to make those goals happen.
Oh, 100%. I love that you said Think and Grow Rich, one of my favorite books. And consistency is key. Consistency is the key to really getting where you need to be.
That's right. You're listening to Coach on Fire, High Performance Leadership with Stephen Bryant and my amazing guest tonight, Chelsea Lee Rock. Want to give you some contact information for Chelsea. If you want to connect with her, if you like what you're hearing tonight, you can find Chelsea on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Chelsea.Fenwick.9. And again, on Twitter, Lee Rock Fitness, LinkedIn, Chelsea Lee Rock, Instagram at Chelsea Lee Rock Official, and website bit.ly/redeeming love. And for me, you can find me on Facebook. It is Stephen Bryant. And also on my Facebook, and I hadn't mentioned this before, I have a coaching page, High Performance Coaching with Stephen Bryant. Would love to have you join that. And I will tell you something that, coming along with that, there's some big news coming up, both with this show, both with a book that's coming out, and both with a special awards program that's going to be coming up that I'm working on a project with the founder of Coach on Fire radio broadcast, Michael Brooks. So I'll give you that as, so if you're on there, join the coaching page. We'd love to have you on there. You can also find me on Instagram as I started this Instagram account back when I was a pastor, so it's obvious, PastorMan007, and Steve Bryant on Twitter, capital STEVE, capital BRYANT, 007 on Twitter. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Stephen Bryant. Contact by email is Stephen with a PH Bryant, Stephen Bryant Photography @gmail.com. And Chelsea, again, it's good to have you on the show tonight. We are having a great time, and I'm learning so much from you. I want to talk a little bit about, you have mentioned that you are the founder of the Confidence Queen, a self-love coach. Talk to me a little bit about that. I'd love to hear it.
Yes. Okay. So, well, yes, like you said, I'm a self-love confidence queen. That started originally with, back when I was telling you about the autoimmune condition, I realized that I had no self-love. And I say this a lot to a lot of my clients and people I coach, and that is, I didn't love myself the way I love myself now. I didn't love myself at 115, 110 pounds when I was 15% body fat and getting on stage. I learned to love myself with a lot more weight, 150 pounds, you know. And for me, that was a lot of weight for me. I'd gained 30 pounds and I was really unhealthy. Everything I ate made me sick. And I went into, like I was saying before, depression, and just really unsure of who I wanted to be. I was drinking, I was smoking, I was doing all these things because I was trying to cope. I didn't know how to cope with what was, my life seemed so great. And I was in the public eye and people knew me as this fitness person. And then I went from that to barely even be able to go to the gym, and people hiring me for modeling projects and saying, I'm sorry, we have to turn you away. And that was something that was really hard, and it took a blow to my self-esteem. And it also really made me realize I wasn't loving myself the way I should. And so I took some really big steps to heal that and to get to what's the root problem, because regardless of how much I weigh or what I look like in front of the camera, who am I under those layers? And that was really the journey back to finding what the root cause was. And I learned that I didn't feel lovable. And that was something that I'd been carrying around for so long. And then once I started to heal that, I started to attract a lot more love into my life, people into my life, and my energy completely changed.
Sounds good. You talk about, in fact, you had studied at UCLA, a master NLP practitioner. Tell me a little bit about what NLP stands for.
Yeah, absolutely. So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It is basically similar to, if you're familiar with Tony Robbins' work, he calls himself a practical psychologist. Yeah, so he does NLP, and hopefully it's okay that I say that. He does that, and then also it's a neuroscience background. So very much into how does your brain, your mind, your body, everything kind of sync together. One thing that I love to talk about, it's one of my favorite things about NLP, is getting the brain and the body to connect. What I mean by that is not having incongruency in the conscious and the subconscious. And I'm probably using terms that are like totally not no terms, but yeah. So just basically aligning your whole mindset with your whole body, so you don't have different experiences and then get frustrated because you're acting out of your integrity. If that makes sense.
It's really interesting you mentioned that, Chelsea, because I'll tell you an experience I had with Tony Robbins is last year. I'm part of a health and nutrition company called Isogenics, and so we went to our celebration event in Las Vegas, and Tony Robbins was the guest speaker there. So actually, Tony ended up speaking for 4 hours straight, and I'm at the end of it, I'm looking at my watch and thinking, I can't believe 4 hours have gone by so quickly. But at the beginning, this is what he did at the beginning: is he had us all stand up. Like, it was probably 8,000 people at the Sands Expo, and so we stood up and he says, I want you to do something. He says, he talked about just about exactly what you said. Our mind and our body are so often out of sync with each other.
Yes.
And he said, I just want you to take a moment, close your eyes. He says, meditate, put your hand over your heart. He says, you feel that beating. And then as he went through that whole process, and for me to try to say what he does, but oftentimes when I speak, I'll do something very similar. He says, and I'll do that. I'll have, as I speak, I just have people get up, and I give him credit for it. I said, this is not a Steve Bryant thing, but and tell the audience this is something that really, and I think this was what prepared the whole audience for 4 hours of him talking, is to put your mind and your body in sync. And it was a really interesting exercise. And the number of times I've had one or two people say, I like what you did at the beginning, but because it really helped me feel comfortable, feel me relax, help me concentrate on what you were saying. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I had that firsthand experience of him doing that.
Yes, that's I love that he did that. That's very true. I mean, it's